Right now on the flip side, we're going to be talking about unanswered prayer.
Like, what do you do when God is taking a sweet time in answering those prayers of yours?
And what about when he just straight up says no?
Welcome to the flip side.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to episode 61 of The Flip Side, and today we're going to be discussing prayer and specifically how God answers our prayers. But first, my name's Brannon Shortt and I'm one of the pastors around here at Bayside, and I have two bona fide legends. I repeat, legends with me today. And you need to know who they are. I mean, the first is Lisa Thompson, who is returning to the show, but Lisa is who I call the Mother Teresa of Bayside.
Oh my goodness.
I would go as far as to say she is a prayer warrior. She is a mobilizing guru. She is incredibly emotionally intuitive. She's your woman's pastor here at Bayside Granite Bay. And most importantly, potentially, she's a fashion icon. So Lisa, welcome back to the flip side.
Thank you, Brandon. Happy to be here. Oh my goodness.
And I have a question for you. What are you most excited about in life right now?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have my entire family together for Thanksgiving. All six of us. The last time we were all together was at Easter. That's a long time.
Wow.
So we're going to be all together at Thanksgiving. It's going to be awesome.
That's amazing. Where is everyone coming in from?
They're just all over the country, finishing up school and coming home from college and work and all of that. So it's going to be great.
Well, I'm excited for your Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Now, friends, the second borderline mythical figure that you need to be introduced to is this man right here, Josh Powers. Josh is the epitome of tall, dark, and handsome. He and his wife, Courtney, have a beautiful daughter. Josh is a student ministry legend and is serving at our Blue Oaks campus. He was once a professional baseball player, and he has two longhorned, he really was, but he also has two longhorn steer in his backyard.
Well, there's four and they don't have horns, but
there are at least four steer in your backyard.
That is a fact, too.
Josh, what are you also...
Mystery man.
He is. He's the Sharks should have a week dedicated to you.
Wow.
I mean, we have Shark Week. They should have Josh Powers Week.
Okay.
But
wow,
what?
That sounds terrible and very uninteresting, but excellent.
I have the same question for you I had for Lisa. Okay. What is the most exciting thing going on in life right now?
Yeah, so actually last night, my 4-year-old who you mentioned, her name is Evie Grace, and we were snuggling because her and her mom are on a quick little day trip. Well, it's today and tomorrow morning, and she was really sad that she was going away. Yes, and so we were snuggling on the couch watching Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
you know, classics. Yeah. And she paused the movie, which I didn't really know she was really able to do, which is great. And she flips around on the couch and she looks me square in the eyes and goes, "Daddy, you're gonna be my prince, and we're gonna get married."
No.
But she said, "Not until we get back from our trip, though." So, and then she flips back around, didn't even finish the thought, and we're back to Beauty and the Beast. So I'm really looking forward. I tried to get something on the calendar. It didn't happen, but I've got something to look forward to.
Good luck, first boyfriend. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I mean, high bar, but I'm willing to take a chance.
What a beautiful moment. Friends, I'm not just saying this. When I was told we were going to do this episode of The Flip Side on how God often answers our prayers, I reached out to these two specifically because there's no two better to talk about the subject. But first, Serena.
Please.
Serena.
What are we drinking today?
Yeah, so we're actually drinking a medium roast from Guatemala from our friends over at World Traveler Coffee Roasters. So shout out to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, World Traveler Coffee.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Really appreciate you.
It has flavor notes of chocolate and orange.
Ooh, good.
Do you guys ever get the flavor notes?
I do.
You actually get them?
You really got to get in there, you know?
Lisa, same for you? Do you actually taste these?
Yeah, especially when I just drink it plain.
I mean, if we were like, no, we don't at all, would we be kicked off the show?
No, you would be with me.
Oh, excellent.
I mean, I never...
Thank you.
So what'd you say the hints were again?
Chocolate and orange. Let's see.
Orange like my cup. Apparently it's pink.
It's pink. It's pink.
Very borderline.
We can go with salmon, but I feel like that's like the farthest.
That's a fair middle ground.
That is delicious.
Well, either way, though I taste absolutely notes of nothing other than hot water
it's great.
in this coffee, we're going to need the bolus to our mental as we dive into this. So let's just dive straight in. This weekend at our campuses, we talked about 3 of the most commonly asked questions on prayer. Yeah. And the first one was, why do some prayers go unanswered? And we dove in biblically about how the truth is we believe all prayers are answered, but that God answers them primarily in 4 different ways. The first is go. That's just the yes, gas to the floor, it's a go answer from God. The second is grow, which is the request honestly is great. The request is right, but there's something that needs to change in us. Right. The slow answer is the circumstances around us are developing. God's timing is not quite right on this yet. Yeah. And then the fourth is no. So as we dive into that, go, grow, slow, no. What are some examples from your guys' lives as you've journeyed with God where you've gotten one of those answers?
Got anything, Lisa?
I can think of one for each of them. Yeah. I think the grow one recently has just been, I think for me sometimes when I go to God with certain requests, I want to see the fruit of that prayer, the fruit of my prayer kind of immediately.
Yeah.
It's almost like, putting seeds in the ground and expecting there to be fruit the next day.
Yeah.
Like there's a process, I think, in our prayer life where God is doing things in us to bring us to the place of how he's going to answer that prayer.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my growth has just been asking God, how do you want to grow me? My character, what do you want to show me in terms of things that you want to change within me? Yeah. To prepare me for whatever answer this may need to be.
That's great. I was at Bayside Santa Rosa this weekend. Shout out to you guys, Bayside Santa Rosa. And we talked about how it's so hard, especially in the grow season, because we have McDonald's, like you want McGod. Like we have Instagram, you want Instagod. Yeah. We even tied that example. We said on Instagram you get to capture a moment on the spot and it uploads immediately and it's a part of your story, right? And sometimes we want that with prayer where, God, we capture this moment, you've captured the request, you upload it immediately, now the whole world can see the answer and voila, now it's a part of my story. And in an instant gratification culture, grow can be an incredibly difficult season.
Yeah, I mean, grow is one thing, but man, no is hard. It's a struggle. I mean, I work with students, right? There are so many times that I feel like I would love to make the decisions for, I would love to win the battles for, I would love to, I've been where you're at, don't go that way, because I know where that goes, I win.
Yes.
Man, I go to God and I'm like, just remove this. Just take it away. Make the way clear and easy. Give them a wind at their back instead of what always feels like just pushing them. And you know what? Sometimes the loudest no's I hear are in those moments. Yeah. And the thing that's crazy for me too is I naturally project into my own life, right? Yeah. It's easy not easy, but it's easier when I'm praying on behalf of someone else's kid. My brain naturally jumps to mine.
Yeah. That's
I mean, I'm praying prayers for my 4-year-old, but man, it makes me go when she's 17 and when she's 16 and jumping into some of these things, and if I hear no, like what am I gonna do then, God? And then now I'm having a completely different conversation. But
that's great.
That is real when it comes to prayer though, right? I mean, so little of my prayer life is neat and tidy. Right. I feel like maybe I'm doing it wrong sometimes, but man, I don't know. It just feels like, especially no matter which answer you're getting, most of the time I want it to be a little cleaner, a little clearer, and a little louder.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And God definitely works in the no's. I was thinking back to when I had applied to one college. I had been praying that I would get into this college. It all looked good on the outside.
You mean you were just that confident?
That confident in this particular college. And I remember getting the letter, reading it in my bedroom, and them rejecting me from this college experience. And I was like, but God, like, this is a good thing. This was a Christian college, and I'd been praying. I'd been doing all the things you do when you want to see prayer answered in a particular way.
Yes.
And what I didn't realize was that no was just a no to that door, that God was opening a totally different door that I could never have imagined or even come up with.
Yeah.
And as time passed, I had the ability of time to look back and go, oh my goodness, instead of going here, you took me over here. I am so glad you didn't listen to me, God.
That's good.
I'm so glad you didn't listen to me.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if you are experiencing a no from God, my encouragement to you is to go back to those times in your life where God gave you a no, but also look and see where he was opening up a yes for you.
That's really good.
And to be reminded that God always has our best in mind.
And super practically, before
Yeah.
he
The Mother
lauds-
Teresa of Bayside Church, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, sorry.
Title being earned, okay. But super practically on that, like, I'm terrible at remembering
Yeah.
those. I just am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, most of the time I don't remember those things. I don't have the breadcrumbs laid out
All right.
perfectly. Like,
Yeah,
it's just not that organized. And
Yeah.
so in my life,
That's good.
I found that if that's going to happen,
Yeah.
I have to be intentional with letting someone else in on the secret.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to tell someone else about the no, the slow, the grow,
disappointment, yeah.
all of it.
Right.
Or, I mean, write it in a journal. Do whatever fits you, honestly. But
Yes.
the thing I've found is if I don't have someone else reminding me, sometimes
That's
I feel
good,
like I'm
Josh.
going nuts in my own head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like having conversations in circles, and I'm not sure when it's prayer and when it's conversation with myself anymore.
Yeah.
And someone else can bring me out of that in a conversation or looking back at a journal entry.
Yeah.
So I'm not a journaler, so I don't do that. But I
Yeah.
throw that out there for the people that are. I bet you are, Mother. Teresa, it's awkward because now I've used it and it wasn't just you.
But that's so good. I mean, I think the no seasons, I shared a story this weekend about my little sister. My little sister is, her name is Riley. She's adopted from Moscow, Russia. And my little sister had 2 double ear infections when she was in the orphanage in Russia. And it went untreated, which left her with permanent hearing loss at some level. Man, we begged God, would you please give her hearing back?
Yeah.
Would you give her hearing back? And the answer was seemingly, at least from what we could tell, right, is no. So through medical science, the answer that comes to that is she has these little hearing aids. And she goes into 1st grade and she's got her little hearing aids. But when she had to get them, it was amazing. She stands up on the doctor's table, puts both fists in the air and screams, "Yes!" And we're just shocked. We're
Yeah,
like, what do you mean,
yeah.
yes? And she goes, "I've always wanted spy gear."
Wow.
So awesome.
I mean, she was just thrilled. She thought it was the coolest thing. She goes to school. They're doing all these exercises where kids are whispering and Riley can hear it. And they're like, how in the world can you hear that?
Yeah.
But what's interesting for me is a seemingly no for Riley was not just growing her in her own story,
Yeah.
but it was also for the benefit of other people.
Yeah.
That we don't know why
Yeah.
no is given.
Yeah.
We never know that. But as we kind of transition into that idea of no, what do you do in the times that it feels like no?
Yeah.
That you have begged God for something. You even felt like what you were asking him was in line with not only his character, what you felt like was his will and what his plan was as well. But it seemed like the answer was no. How do you deal with those times?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, before I even say anything on that, I just feel like, full disclosure, sometimes I hear people talk about, like, the answers they get from God in prayer.
Yeah.
And I go, what answers have I got from God in prayer lately? And then I realize that I don't really have anything. And then I think back, the next thought is, wait, when was the last time I actually went to God with what's going on? And there's this direct link, and I have to imagine that some of you are out
Yeah.
there too. I mean, I know the 3 of us are,
Totally.
but like we're making this assumption that like we're in the middle of Pray 40, man, and we're all diving into prayer and we're going after it, but like, are we? Because life is real, and prayer sometimes is not, as like you said, insta whatever. And so sometimes, man, I catch myself going, oh man, for these kinds of answers
Yeah.
to be coming at all, the ask has to be there in the first place. Like,
That's
are
right.
we even going to God in the first place with
Right.
what is on our heart and what he's put in there,
Right.
so that we can even feel
That's right,
like the
Josh.
things we're talking
Yeah.
about today are a thing. So
Yeah.
just be encouraged. Like, there isn't a correct path to get there. Just start today, now, easy. Have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
It's real.
It's really good.
I love that.
Really good.
Anything else on a no season?
I think oftentimes it's just a not yet.
For sure.
So I think it's just, going back to the grow, that could just be, this is where God is developing our faith in that season of wait. It's where he's revealing things that he wants to change. It's how he's preparing us for what's next.
Yeah.
And God doesn't work in 48 hours. He just doesn't.
No.
He works over time. And it's really he cares less about us having that end result or that specific prayer answered than he cares about the relationship that we have with him while we're learning to lean on him and trust him and bring it all to him, or even the challenges of waiting on him. Like, he's a big God. He can take our frustration and some of the things that come up for us in those seasons.
He can handle
the passion. He can handle it.
He can.
Sure. Yeah.
We talked about this weekend, for some prayers are definitive no's. Mm-hmm. Like, you know that it's definitive. And we talked about, there's this thing in the Bible called lamenting that church doesn't always talk about. Mm-hmm. We don't always discuss, what does it look like in a really hard season to lament? And we said that we lament under the umbrella that God always cares. So if we know that God answers prayer always according to his will, and we also know that his heart is for our good, it also flows out of his goodness. His goal is to love us in the ways that we've never been loved before, that God even is love, that the Bible shouts of this being true. Underneath this umbrella, when it gets hard, we see characters in the Bible, David, Solomon, Moses, name the disciples, cry out to God. Why? Why? And we don't talk about this a lot. We said, if you're looking under the umbrella that God cares, we said, write out C-A-R-E. That to lament is to complain, because we said complaining against God, complaining about God is rebellion. But we say complaining to God is worship, because it's relational. So you go to him with it. So you complain, name the thing as honest as you can say it. And then we said appeal to God's character is the A. Something like, God, because you're loving, because you're gracious, because you're kind. And then we said the R is remind God of his promises. And the secret sauce of that is not that God needs to be reminded because he's forgot. Often you need to be reminded because you have. That the secret sauce in that is in claiming God's promise, in saying, God, remember you said, remember what you did. The secret sauce is that in so doing, he's reminding you. And then the E in that care is express trust. One of my favorite verses in the Bible in Psalm 116 is this lament prayer. It's God, why? God, why? How long? How long? How long? And then it ends with saying, but I trust in your unfailing love. So to complain, name it, appeal to God's character, remind of his promises, and express total trust. That's what I do in the no seasons, or in the seasons that the prayer just doesn't make sense.
That's really good.
Because so often we don't know. You nailed it. Like, there's times it seems that it's a definitive no, and that's where I'm headed. But there's times it seems like a no, and I'm not sure if it's a grow or if it's actually just slow. And here's the truth, like, who knows?
That's right.
Like, who knows? So the dedication to growing in the meantime, the dedication to trusting in God's timing, and even when it doesn't make sense. For the grow seasons for you guys, what does growth look like? Where do you go? What are the relationships? What are the practices you dive into in a growth season? Hopefully growth is always happening, but you get what I'm saying.
Saying yes in uncomfortability.
Good, Josh.
It's the worst. Do this thing you don't really want to do. But I think about it this way, that it's what helps give me perspective. That's the word that kept coming up when you were talking, is this idea that, like, you ever been like at a sports game or something, and you want to capture the video, so you push record on your phone, and like you're not sure if you should watch it through your phone or if you should look in real time. You know, like, most of the time if I do that, which isn't often because I'm superstitious sometimes when it comes to sports, it's okay. And
he's a baseball player.
So if I'm watching through it, like, and then everybody else will cheer or something will happen, but I'm watching the video that has a delay, my perspective has altered my ability to see what's actually going on.
That's really good.
And
that's good.
And the thing that I kept hearing when you're saying this, like, where are you at this time, is like, man, what alters perspective?
Yeah.
And what I've found that alters perspective more than anything else is saying yes to doing uncomfortable things precisely because I know that they're uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I'm talking about things that are like within the framework of what God is calling me as his child to be and to live in, right? Like take time to stop by and honor your wife with that fun little thing, even though we both know you don't have time.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable. It sounds weird to say, but like when a schedule's already full, maybe sometimes that can be hard.
Yeah.
Or, you know, honor this, you know, take this opportunity. And sometimes it reminds me though, like, man, if God really has this intentional purpose through which we appeal to him in prayer on behalf of something, I want to have said yes to those growth opportunities enough times so that when it goes, go, pedal to the metal, go after it. Man, those growth opportunities that he intentionally put in front of me have allowed me to be what it is I'm supposed to be in that go, because that's where we all want to get.
That's
right.
Good. That is so great, so great. And that comes out of just your relationship with Jesus, right? Jesus asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? And he said, go feed my sheep. Go say yes to this. Go sacrifice this, and trust me with this prayer that you've been praying for 20 years. I mean, we do that because we trust God, and we can depend on his timing because it's perfect.
Right.
And one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of just the waiting on God piece, back to the Psalms, was the way that David continually affirmed what he had already known about God. So we have a history with God. It may be a short history, it may be a long history, but we have enough experience with God where we can declare who he is as we're patiently waiting for that God to deliver us, to bring freedom, to bring victory, to answer prayer, whatever it is that we're praying for. And then the second thing is God always puts us around people.
Yeah.
So we can actually become pretty consumed and self-absorbed with our own prayer life. And sometimes a way to let go of that is actually to begin praying for other people.
Yes.
And you know, we're doing prayer at all of our campuses on Sunday, and I just had this moment on Sunday. I've got some prayer requests that I'm holding right now that God's not answering. And just questioning right now. And as I was praying for other people, I'm in this waiting period. I'm waiting for him to specifically answer some long time prayers.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to pray for other people coming up, and all of a sudden my faith is strengthened by the way that God is either working through these requests or the ways that he has me praying for other people. So it's not like we're idle while we're waiting on God. Like he's doing stuff.
Totally.
And he's calling us to serve and care for other people.
That's right.
And he's reminding us of who he is.
That's so good.
David was so good in the Psalms of doing that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think in growth seasons too that we can't ignore, like growing often means growing pains. And I remember reading C.S. Lewis as a college kid and him writing, it's not often that we doubt or that we don't know that God has our best in mind. The question is, how painful will best be? Like, what will it take for us to grow? What will it take for us to get to the place that God wants to develop our character? He's way more concerned with our character than he is anything else.
Our comfort.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like the formation of ourselves. Well, the last thing I want to talk about today is I think so many times, it's not that we don't believe God's up there so we don't pray. I think so many times we went to God in prayer with so much hope. So much hope.
Yeah.
And then felt we got met with so much disappointment.
Yes, that's right.
That it feels scary to hope again like that.
Yeah.
That prayer even feels vulnerable, or it even maybe reminds us of our pain that we experienced in that season. Have either of you been through a season, you don't have to go into details, but where you've been praying, and honestly, you lost hope that it was ever coming? That's a real question, friends.
It's a real question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, I think that as I think back, vulnerable is a really good word because ultimately prayer is about giving over to God the control that I generally want to assume.
That's good, Josh.
And I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, when it feels like I've been burned, air quotes if you want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the really vulnerable parts of our life and in our heart. I found that something like the care that you mentioned approach, the sort of lamenting approach, is really helpful.
Yeah.
But even more just practically, I found that like in the thing that's popping in my mind just in walking through some things like just in my own personal life, but then also like my wife and I and just some different things over the last couple of years, I found that when things are most messy, my prayers to God align me with Him and with my wife in ways that I am not able to do on my own.
That's good.
And so what I've found is this crazy, like, I don't understand how to explain it, blessing on the back end of being able to look back and finding the purpose in the pain.
Yes.
That is, we're always taking a chance to trust God.
Yes.
Because it's releasing of control.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so, yeah, it's always hard.
That's a real answer.
It's a choice that we get, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just that reminder that God enters that disappointment and that sorrow and that pain. And Jesus, Matthew 11:28, wept when Mary and Martha's brother was dead.
Right.
Knowing full well the big picture of that story.
Yes.
And I believe we have a God that sees the big picture of all of our stories, including the pain, but He enters that pain knowing full well what's ahead that we cannot see.
Yes.
And so for me, it's keeping it real, like going to God and wrestling with those things we need to wrestle with, but not going to God because I don't believe that has my best.
Right.
It's just allowing those circumstances to draw me closer to Him instead of taking me away, but keeping it real and not feeling like I have to manage it in a spiritual sense.
I think it's so true because I think
mustard seed of faith is all we need. That's
right.
Not a whole lot.
That's right. I think
to move mountains.
I love that you say that we have to keep it real. I think it's so interesting that often, I mean, me included, right? We've all fallen in this trap. Is that God already knows. The Bible says before you even ask your Father, He already knows what you need.
That's right.
And He already knows what you're thinking.
Yes.
And He already knows how you feel.
So true.
And then we go and then our prayer doesn't reflect the reality of where we are.
Yeah.
That there's often this inner turmoil, inner pain at times, inner joy even on the far other side of the pendulum, and then our prayer looks very diluted. It looks dialed down, it looks watered down, it looks like often like fluffy words. We talked about this weekend in Bayside Santa Rosa that there's a prayer that is, infinitely preeminent God of the universe ruling over all created things could be as light as a feather when it comes to the faith involved, depending on where one's heart is. And one that just says, Jesus' help can be in a heart overflowing of faith.
Yeah.
That when it's in a season, even if our hope is down, even if our hope is, even if we feel like, I had a lady tell me, I feel like my hope was crushed. I think going back to that place with God is what heals that. Well, going back, and I mean, we say that God is tirelessly and passionately relational, so we can go back to Him over and over and over. Saint Teresa of Avila once said this: prayer is nothing else than an intimate sharing between friends. And it means taking time frequently to be alone with Him who we know fully loves us.
That's so good, Brannon. I was just thinking personally, even in the last couple years, I feel like that's an area where God is growing me and how to come alongside people where there is disappointment. And to be a better listener and to not try and solve it and to say things that aren't helpful in that situation, just to enter that pain. I mean, that's what we do as family. And
that's right.
And but bringing that faith into that relationship, going, but God, He's working. He's doing those things that you may not see, but I see. And calling that out for one another is super helpful.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Totally. We talked about, we discussed this weekend these 3 attitudes that God values in prayer. And we said He values persistence, He values attachment, and He values surrender. And we talked about how, me growing up, and you guys know a little bit of my story, went through a rebellious season, rolled with the wrong crowd for some years of my life, and I know that the phrase always for me was, Brannon, even if you're not doing it, you're going to be guilty by association.
Come on.
And that we said, if association brings guilt, if you were guilty by association, God's very heart for us is to be free instead of guilty, and not by association, but because of unification. That we have been brought in and grafted into God. We have been brought, as Christ is in us, we are in him.
That's right.
So I think as we tirelessly go after this relationship with God, even when it doesn't make sense, we go with that attitude of attachment. It wasn't supposed to be association. It's to be a relationship that's deeply attached. We go there with persistence, asking, seeking, and knocking on the door, to beat the door down even.
That's right.
Beat the door down,
That's
and then we
right.
surrender. You mentioned that earlier. We surrender. And if you're like any of us, I'm sure anybody listening, I want the control.
Oh, yeah.
I want the hand on the steering wheel. We were driving down the Autobahn in southern Germany this past April. No speed limit. I'm going 128 miles an hour. That's easier for me.
It's not safe,
when
man.
I've got my hand on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
My wife in the other hand. It's so much harder when you don't have the control, is what I'm trying to say. Life is so much easier when you feel like you're grasping at the control, but we have to trust God enough to surrender, knowing, absolutely knowing without a shadow of a doubt that his plan is for our good, that it overflows from our goodness, that God is from his goodness, that God is for us, for us. And the relationship from father to sons and daughters means that we can go and ask anything.
Yeah.
Always. Nice to see what you did there.
Yes. Friends, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.